For life.
That's fun. Just like, how long have you done that? Since 2021. Yeah, so I kind of started in 2022. And so I was definitely like, yeah, just like, so he says that like, he's been in for yeah. So this is for some time now. But what can what can so yeah. I know some girlfriends that like that struggle because they like I live in Georgetown. No, like all these guys like, oh, we bought a house, but it's a huge, yeah. Okay, yeah, like high school. Southwest University. Okay, yeah, so this is there, that's where we met at the house party. That's cute. It was like some artist school. We just rented that. Yeah. 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 Because like when that's what it's like here. Oh, okay. There was a gig brought You know, in the beginning, it was we were both very different people when we first met. Like he would have a toxic relationship. Like, is there a joke there? So, yeah, I feel like I've had some like friendships that have shifted. I've had a lot of back friends where I'm like, I question it a little way through and I've talked over. So then I think I have to move on.
Yes.
Total great friends now. Well, it's a cool thing. Yeah, yeah.
Can you do that?
Yeah.
Green guitars.
We're going to start in about a minute, just testing the microphones. Can everyone hear me? Yay. Can the live stream hear me?
Hello, people online. AKA hello, moms.
Is there a link to the live stream?
Yeah, we posted on Facebook and Instagram. I think it's like recording, so it should like be available later as well. We've never tried it. We'll see.
All right, hello everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for being here today. It means a lot for you to show up.
So I'm Jasna Boudard,
And I'm Topher Sept, and together we are Metacaustics. And we're really excited to have an exhibit called Somnium here at the Dougherty Arts Center. It's been a lot of work to make this happen, and really thankful to have this opportunity to be here and share more about our creative journey and all the works that we've made for it. We've got about 60 or so works across a variety of different media, including paintings, drawings, metal prints, 3D prints, video works, and we're going to be sharing a little bit about our respective artistic backgrounds before we share about Metacaustics and the work that we have in the show, and then what's coming up next for us too.
Are y'all going to be able to turn these down a little bit? Backlights?
The lights.
I don't think so. So my name is Topher Sept, and I work in a variety of media. although I work in a lot of digital media these days, my background is really in drawing. As long as I can remember, I've been drawing with a variety of different materials, a pencil, pen, on paper. Pretty much everywhere I go, I have a sketchbook with me as well, of all sizes. And so that's really the foundation of my work. I was really inspired by comics, video games, animation growing up. And I ended up studying communication design with a focus on illustration and graphic design at Texas State University. And after that, it kind of was a bridge to start using a digital drawing tablet. So I was able to use my hands and draw, but with digital augmentation. And so after college, I started working in fabrication design, mostly in theme parks, water parks, and playgrounds, and a variety of other things. It was really exciting to not only use my imagination, but also to have bring in a lot of technical skills like drafting and making things to scale in order to art direct fabrication teams to build life-size giraffe slides and then ship them around the world. I also got to work with an amazing sculptor, metal sculptor, Beverly Penn. She's based here in Austin, and commissioned me to do fabrication design for several of her projects too. And then I started doing a lot of projects with the Meadow Center for Water and the Environment in San Marcos. They like a nature center, formerly known as the Ocarina Center, and so a lot of projects became very conservation focused and using illustration, design, and other techniques. I started working with a lot of like water-based conservation clients, and that was a really inspiring time to be around spring water consistently, day by day. I actually drove glass bottom boats for 4.5 years, and could talk about that for a long time. But that introduced me to collaborating with some other people and start to find new ways to express myself. So on the top left, we see a former glass bottom boat coworker, Samantha Beasley, and we started Art Theism performance group where I was projecting onto her while she was dancing. And then that also introduced me to working more immersively, not only in performances, but also using virtual reality as a tool. Helped to visually art direct a meditation video game called Sound Self. And then I started using virtual reality to actually draw and design in 3D in real time, also in collaboration with live musicians. And so it was really fun to be able to dance and draw in space in real time, and to be able to have a much more physiological relationship with the digital work that I was creating. And one of my favorite collaborations was with the Houston Symphony and a number of other live musicians. It was really opened me up to new creative pathways, and it kind of reintroduced me into the 3D design space. And so I started making a lot more 3D illustrations using a variety of both virtual reality tools and desktop tools, and which dovetails into how we collaborate. So, Jasna.
All right, thank you. Did you want to say anything else? Or?
Thanks for asking. No, not yet. Thank you.
I've been an artist my whole life. I consider myself a new media artist right now, but it's been, same as Topher, gone through a lot of different mediums to kind of get to what feels the most aligned with my practice these days, which is mainly working with photography, video, that's turned into like immersive installations through projections. Just playing a lot of different worlds. But start from. So I've also been drawing and painting my whole life. I think like throughout grade school, I was in art classes, and it was my senior year of high school. I was in AP Arts, and we needed to put together an AP portfolio, and I wanted to take the shortcut route of realizing that most of my drawings and paintings were figurative and therefore based out of photography I was doing. So I was like, maybe I can just bypass the second step and just call photography my medium out of sheer laziness. Little did I know that that would open up the rest of my career. I just fell in love with photography. And then, next slide. Yeah, I started doing a lot of photo shoots, mainly worked with women. The photo in the middle is actually one of the first photos I've ever taken. That was like analog black and white film photography. To this day, it is my favorite photo I've ever taken. The digital just cannot surpass this one for me. But most of my subject matter was shooting dancers and circus performers. I was really drawn to movement specifically. And I traveled a whole lot. So I started a series of like dance around the world and shooting different circus performers in different parts of the world. Like the bottom right one is I lived in Spain for a while and had a collaboration with a group named Somnium who did a lot of circus acts for big events. And I was lucky to be their in-house photographer and got to do a lot of fun photo shoots around the city. Did a lot of body painting, just played, just a lot of fun playtime. And while I was doing these photo shoots, I was also traveling the world. So my camera started being a bit more interested in not just humans as a subject, but the environments I would find myself in. And so a lot of nature photography, different landscapes and architecture. I just started really developing a travel portfolio all over the world. And my dream was to be a photographer and travel. And then at some point I was like, I need to make this profitable because all my money would go into plane tickets. But moving on. Eventually, I found myself going back to school. So I went to grad school with my photography portfolio, and it was deemed a little too commercial for the art world from the slides we had seen previously. So I felt like I had to pivot to find my way in art school. So I got more into shooting video, like expanding my camera work from shooting movement-based imagery to actually shooting movement. So I still worked a lot with dancers, but started abstracting it a lot more, such as like the one in the bottom left is shadow dancers, featuring my mom actually. And then at the top, we've got like inks and water. So I just got like really experimental with documenting still thematics I was interested in, but really working with the moving image. And I found myself weary of just staring at a computer screen every day of my life. So I started getting more interested in how to bring whatever I was shooting back into physical space, which is what started opening me up to doing immersive installations. So I got access to a lot of projectors, and I thought it was fun to, instead of just experiencing photography or video on a screen, to project it back into physical space so that people could enter these worlds that I was documenting. So here are a few examples of some installation works I had done. I became really interested in not just having a projected image be cinema, where you just stare at it, but really inviting the audience to step into the work and interact with the work. So I had a lot of, again, movement-based imagery with dancers and inks, and I found that people were still a little shy to go put themselves in the imagery because they thought like maybe their shadow that they were casting wasn't welcomed. And so working with this idea of the shadow, like in the top right, that's what I guess inspired me to create this piece, which is like probably my favorite piece to this day. It was like an installation that's like staggered. So there's like a hallway of different layers of saris, which are the traditional outfits that South Asians wear. So my mom was a shadow dancer growing up, and I just wanted to do a piece in her honor. So I made this shadow dancing world, like maze, that people could go into. And therefore they had no choice but to enter into the piece and cast their own shadows. And there was this whole relationship, like visual relationship between seeing the moving shadows and their own shadows. And that started getting people to really interact and feel immersed in the work. So I felt like that was my gateway to a lot of future works I started getting into, and eventually working with Topher. Here's a few more examples, this time video. It's a little easier to see video works when they're actually in video. So creating immersive spaces, adding projections to events. There's like either projection on walls, or the one on the right is actually like onto candles. So it was also really fun to work with objects as projection material. So I really just got experimental with how all light-based imagery can live in different spaces.
Okay, so those candles are lit, and then you're also doing a projection on them?
No, so the candles were actually just blank candles, and I was activating them with the projection. So it's like the imagery you're seeing is like lit up smoke. So instead of having smoke come out of the candles, it was like symbolic of the smoke being trapped within the candles. And so just playing with projections in different novel ways. Most recently, I started working more into like public art and diverging a little bit from projections, but still doing light-based work. So this was the result of my artist residency at the Dougherty. Thank you, Thera. I was really honored to be their first artist in residence for about a year, and came up with this really fun installation that was inspired by the community. We did a bunch of workshops with the kids where they got to explore two themes that I gave them, which was like what's in the sea and what's in the sky. And a lot of jellyfish were popping up, so I was inspired to do these like jellyfish like in the sky kind of vibe. So these jellyfish light up, they're motion sensor reactive, so as the kids are underneath them, they turn on. So it's like still movement based, still light based, but now I'm like diverging from just doing projection work and looking more three-dimensional, and going into the public art realm, which is brand new for me, but it's a lot of fun to put this together.
For what it's worth, the Thinkery, for those who don't know, is Austin's Children's Museum for now over 40 years, and you're their first artist in residence.
Yeah, and the work is, this piece is permanent, so if y'all go to Thinkery, you'll see it.
Anything else you'd like to share before we move on?
Yeah, it's funny, it feels like we were gonna prompt each other with questions like this, and then like, I think I've said everything. We'll probably take questions at the end, but if y'all have anything that comes up, like you just said, feel free to throw out questions.
Yeah. So we're going to continue and share a bit about our collaborative journey as Metacaustics. So for some context, this show is called Somnium, and that language is related to dreams and visions. And that's very much connected to how Jasna and I first started collaborating with one another. We actually had several back-to-back dreams about collaborating with each other over several days. And that was around the time that we were starting to collaborate on our first project, which we'll share shortly. And also, up to that point, I had been dream journaling for almost 2 decades, and so it was really meaningful to have this connection with Jasna and to collaborate in such a unique way to plant such special seeds. So our very first project was called Melting Mirrors, and it debuted at the 2023 Creek Show. If you haven't been, that's an annual event. It's been going on for a little over a decade now, around Waller Creek in the Red River District, downtown Austin. It's a series of nighttime light-based art installations. And so we did an installation underneath the 10th Street Bridge where we projected onto a sequence of fabrics that were set up in this frame system, and the fabric allowed light to pass through as well. And so the imagery was actually duplicated over the creek and also reflected a bit into the creek water itself. It almost was like slices of a hologram. And it was all featuring slow motion footage that Jasna had taken of the surface of Waller Creek during the daytime. Yes, sir. Oh, I thought you had a question.
This is the creek show y'all had?
Yeah, this was our piece from the Creek Show in 2023.
Is this the single projector that you used for this? That's passing through like all the fabrics or multiple?
Yeah, so there's one projector, it's like set up into the wall, and what it's projecting onto is kind of like mosquito netting. So it's both catching on the surface and also passing through and catching onto the next layer and next layer. This was also inspired by that piece I showed earlier with the shadow dancers, where working with saris, it's a similar material where it kind of is porous enough to go through the material. So upon showing Topher previous works I had done, he was like, we need to redo this concept, and like pitched the Creek Show. And I had just moved to Austin, so I was like, you want to collaborate with me? Okay, cool.
And I had never met someone else who had so much projection installation experience, and having done a lot of projection performances myself, it was really exciting to meet someone else who was interested in using that medium in innovative ways.
We also realized that on top of the shared medium of projections that we shared thematically, we were really interested in similar things too. Elemental imagery is a big part of the collaborative work we do. So applying for the Creek Show seemed like a perfect beginning to exploring our shared visual language.
Absolutely. And it was also, there was a lot of very interesting, okay, we'll continue. All good. So we ended up being able to repurpose that frame system very soon after the Creek Show. And we're commissioned to do an indoor installation, but using entirely different imagery. We also rotated the entire frame system 90 degrees, so now it was vertically oriented, and now it's more interactive. People could actually walk in between the frames, as you see in the center. And we were projecting some galactic snowflake starship imagery for an event called the Illumiverse. And this was held at Data Lab, which is a new media art and studio space on the east side of Austin.
Yeah.
One of the people who was really moved by our Melting Mirrors installation from the Creek Show was local artist Alicia Philly. And she was involved with the San Marcos studio tour the following year and reached out to us with an idea to collaborate. And so the three of us teamed up and made 2 installations. And we received a grant from the city of San Marcos to execute the larger public one, which you see here. It's projected onto the historic Hays County Courthouse. That's the full title. And we projected onto the columns. We also used a series of LED lights that we were actually activated in real time with the projection mapping, and the music, which was music that we licensed from Highway Lights, some local music producers, and it happened to be an album that was inspired by, it was meant for people to listen to while witnessing the total solar eclipse. And so a lot of the imagery that we were using was inspired by the timing of that. The studio tour happened, I think, the day before that total solar eclipse too. So we made a lot of choices related to that timing. And for the imagery, we were also very much inspired by Alicia's paintings. We actually made virtual reality versions of several of her paintings and then kind of projected fly-throughs inside of her paintings, both onto the courthouse, and also did an an indoor installation at the mothership headquarters of the San Marcos Studio Tour in the upper right, where we were actually projecting onto a series of Alicia's sculptures as well.
And the majority of this piece was on the columns, accompanied by the music, and then there would be this moment of totality to kind of symbolize the eclipse and like the anticipation of seeing this awe-inspiring moments where instead of the columns being illuminated, they were coronaed, and then the whole building got lit up by the LED. So it was this kind of like spectacular moment to anticipate.
Yeah.
So definitely to date our biggest scale project, like projecting onto a whole courthouse like that was very cool.
Yeah,
Have a question?
That is just amazing about that, the combination of the historical building, you know, from like maybe what, the 1920s or something with, you know, current day. I mean, and that is just incredible. But what gave you the idea to think of that, a building like that as your canvas?
It wasn't originally going to be the building. It was originally going to be maybe just a few of Alicia's sculptures in the corner of the lawn. And then when we did a site visit and we looked at all these different spaces around there, Jasna noticed these massive columns at the front of the courthouse and suggested, why don't we project on there? It's a much larger canvas.
And give the people what they want, like, for the whole show.
So it was her idea.
I have a question. Do y'all have any plans to do art around the upcoming eclipses next year in Iceland and the year after that in Egypt?
We need to talk.
Okay.
Haven't thought that far, but we'll get to it. We do have an eclipse-inspired piece in this current show. So that was definitely one thing with this last eclipse was the work was abstracted to honor Alicia's paintings and sculptures, but we also just wanted to do something that was just eclipse. So we made one for this show instead.
That's an exciting question. So, so we've also had, a number of other pieces that have, a number of other projection new media pieces that have lived in a variety of spaces, and these are just a few samples of those.
I got Big Medium and Data Lab once again.
So speaking of this show, we're going to move on to Somnium here at the Dougherty Arts Center. So we did a lot of planning for this show to the point of 3D scanning the gallery space out front and then kind of recreating the gallery in 3D along with a number of our artworks. And so what you're seeing here, these are actually all 3D renders of the space to help us plan things out to scale and have a better sense of where each of our respective series and our collaborative series would be located within the gallery. And it really helped us to make decisions from afar because, there's a lot of moving pieces with over 60 pieces. And this really helped us to plan out things. And we're gonna share a bit about our respective solo series in this show before our collaborative series. So, Jasna.
Okay, so going back to my photography, I was mainly talking about like mediums and journey, less so thematics I was exploring. I mentioned like movement and light-based work, but I noticed the more I was shooting, the more there was certain imagery that I was gravitating towards, and I was really drawn to these sacred geometry patterns. I started noticing them everywhere in my travels, and the more I researched it and understood that there's like spirituality embedded in the works, it just started like really resonating with the kind of work I want to do, and therefore these radial, symmetrical, sacred geometry forms started being something I was capturing the world to something I wanted to create in my creative work. So my video pieces started reflecting that too. Instead of just shooting normal imagery, I started really playing with kaleidoscopes. There's a bunch of different things going on here. The one in the top left that's moving crazy right now is of a belly dancer. You might actually see her face or her arms pop in and out of there every once in a while, but that series was the 4 elements. I was already exploring elemental thematics in my work, but it was the 4 elements represented through belly dance. So this piece is on air, there was one on fire, earth, and water. And just wanted them to be displayed in this kaleidoscope sacred geometry format to really represent like the Islamic art and how they represent a lot of symbolic imagery in that. And then these were fun because they were also, like right now we're just seeing the video content, but they were also projected back onto the dancers. So she was like immersed in her own imagery doing performances. A lot of fun. I wish I could just do a whole presentation on that series alone. But the top right and the bottom left are both my travel photography, that instead of just being static images, I started working with them being moving imagery that creates, therefore, the vibe of a place. So the bottom left is all imagery of Japan, for example. So what you're seeing is a moving kaleidoscope of Japan and the textures and patterns of that space. I've got a dozen different countries I've done in this format. The one at top right is more so nature imagery, a lot of trees and plants. And then the bottom one is some of my ink drop series, but just turn into these really beautiful, slow, meditative, color shifting kaleidoscopes. So started really trying to incorporate the themes I was interested in, the formats I was interested in, and started becoming a lot more in this direction. And so for the series I created for Somnium specifically, I went through a whole process to figure out what I wanted to do for this show, because originally when I applied, I'd actually applied with the Shadow Dancer installation as what I would do for this show, and got accepted, was really excited. After talking through logistics of what that would look like, I think I decided to make it be a joint venture with Topher instead, and not make the whole gallery space become one installation, but have parts of it be an installation, parts of it be maybe physical works we could sell, because that's always nice. So then for physical works, wasn't sure what to do, but I just knew that, again, that symmetrical sacred geometry meditative process of creating really spoke to me. So because we decided we wanted to have a dream theme show, I was like, it'd be fun to do a dream catcher. Let me just like experiment making a mandala-like dream catcher to catch dream ideas, so to speak. And it turned into a whole series. The one on the left is the very first one I made, and I loved it. And I was like, okay, this is slowly turning into a series. Wasn't the plan, that's just what happened as the creative process goes. Ended up making 33 of them. This series is like really interesting to me as far as like what it represents for me personally. I think of dreams as a dark space we go into when we sleep that gets illuminated by certain visions. So I wanted to paint with light on a dark space to kind of represent that. And then after making about a dozen of these, I thought, okay, they're all kind of unique. They should maybe have their own titles. And I was thinking of what to title them. And so I started thinking about like, what do we all collectively dream about? So we dream of hope, or dream of joy, or dream of, I'm trying to remember all the titles of these, but dream of protection, dream of expansion, dream of
Acceptance,
et cetera, et cetera. So after titling the first dozen, I started titling the other half before making the works, so that the works would get inspired by the word I had chosen. So that was fun to associate a word with an image, and had this whole series pop up.
how did you make this series?
Well, thank you for asking. The video can show that. They're all radial symmetry, so used rulers, compasses, just to kind of get a base shape down, like the first initial circles, and then like where the middle point is. And then I would kind of just freestyle from there, just select a limited range of colors to work with, and that would be my creative limitations, and then I would just flow and see what would come out of it. And again, the second half, the words would inspire a little bit of the direction I wanted to go in, but for the most part, they all revealed themselves to me kind of like dreams do. So they weren't so much like, this is exactly what this one's going to look like. I would find out as I was making it. And then the video on the right is me struggling to put sawtooth backings on these to to install them in the gallery so that they would stay straight. Anyway, social media content, we all need that, right? So. And yeah, installing them. I didn't think making 30 pieces and putting them on a wall would be such an adventure, but we got this like laser leveler to help with that process, and Topher really came in clutch. But
That really helped out. Thank you, Leader. Anything else you want to share about that series?
No, unless there's questions, but feel complete.
Have you presented this some other places too?
This is its debut, so it's on the other side of this wall over here, if you haven't seen it yet, but that's no, it was made for this show. Hopefully it'll live in other places after, but this is its...
Well, because partly I was like wondering if, you know, right, you sort of, if you had done it before, if, yeah, you sort of make your display, you know, custom to whatever space it's going on, but since this is the first one, that is impressive.
So interestingly enough, can't see it here, but when you go out, just pay attention to this. I hung them chronologically, so they're hanging like left to right, and then the second row is also left to right in the order I made them in. So I didn't really plan how they would look together. I just hung them in the order they were made, but somehow, just serendipitously, they go so perfectly. Like the top one and the bottom one look like they were made for each other. They're just really, that just worked out really well. Yeah.
Do you have one that speaks to you the most?
Yeah, that's been so hard to choose a favorite. I love asking other people what their favorites are. The first one, I think, is my favorite just because it's called Dream of Origin, because it just started this whole series and this whole journey I didn't anticipate going down in. I almost, before the show started, put a red dot on it to be like, no one gets to take that one. It's mine. But I didn't, and it sold on opening night, so it's like, okay. So thank you to my patron, but yeah.
Which one aligns with the dream you have the most often?
Dream I have the most often? It's a good question. I want to say dream of protection, which is also on the other slide. The one on the right. I think dream of protection is like a big one for me. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, you talk about dreams a lot. I'm curious if you experience lucid dreaming and if that meld of like conscious and subconscious kind of comes out in your work.
Absolutely. Topher's definitely the dream expert here. You could probably have a whole panel on speaking about all sorts of dream lingo and dream experiences. But yeah, definitely dreams have been a big part of my inspiration as well. Inspired a lot of the works I've created from there. And unfortunately less so recently, but I definitely used to lucid dream a whole lot in the past. So.
Yeah, if you want to chat more lucid dreams, we can chat after. Anything else, Jasna?
No, we'll see at the end.
So I really liked how you were mentioning the process of painting or drawing with light in darkness. And that's actually something that both of our individual series in this show both experiment with and express. So I mentioned drawing as a foundation for me growing up. But along the way, I did come across a process that was not taught, but something that was more intuitive. About 20 years ago, I started experimenting with what's known as a surrealistic technique called pure psychic automatism, also known as automatic drawing, where you are just surrendering to a creative process without necessarily even having an idea of what it's going to look like. One of my favorite ways to do this is actually while blindfolded. And so we're actually seeing just a brief example of what automatic drawing might look like. Additionally, I'm on the other screen. There we go. So I included a few drawings on paper. These are ink and colored pencil on black paper. And these were all created using that same technique, but I guess slightly more refined. So when I started each one of these, I didn't know where it was going to end up. It was an intuitive process, and it tends to be guided by music as well. I like the paper to act as a dance floor for my hand. And so each of these were intuitively guided, usually while listening to music. And so these works are in the show, but they're kind of a precursor to the larger series that I have using a different medium, a digital medium. It's called the Remembering Anamnesis series. And anamnesis is a word that means something along the lines of remembering what one has forgotten. And I started this series initially in 2019. Top left is the first one. It was a period of time where I was experiencing some grief, and I was in the process of reconnecting with parts of myself that I had forgotten. And so the series really started as a cathartic form of art therapy. And all of these works, even though they're digital, use a similar process where while listening to music, I'm, in this case, using an iPad and drawing with a stylus. We're seeing some time lapses of what some of those pieces look like. Where I'm digitally drawing with a stylus, an iPad. The first few in the series, I was actually at live music shows, and I had brought my iPad with me onto the dance floor, where I was able to dance with my full body and also dance with the stylus onto the iPad and create these works in real time. So each one was actually created during the duration of the music show as well. And I continued this process ever since then, and it turned into a series. But eventually, I started introducing some of my 3D elements that were created in virtual reality. And so over time, I started introducing those elements. And by the very end of this series, Triptych showed up. And this piece, or these three pieces, kind of feel like a transitional process, because I didn't use an iPad at all. I actually created all of these forms in virtual reality. So I'm able to use a lot more of my body more expressively to really dance with the work. And show you a video. This is kind of a fun behind the scenes. Each of those highlighted areas was actually a single sort of virtual reality sculpture by itself, and then I composited them all together and then brought them into a 3D space and started to almost illuminate them from the inside out, treating the digital material as if it was translucent, and it kind of creates almost this X-ray-like effect. And the squares, the rectangles in the piece are actually a three-dimensional stepped pyramid, and that's actually what we're seeing instead of two-dimensional. So it was fun to experiment with the bounds between 2D and 3D, and I'm looking forward to using this technique for more pieces in the future. And next, we're going to share a bit more about our collaborative pieces here in the Somnium show. So we've got about 7 currently looped animated works on one side of the gallery, along with a series of 3D prints. And for context, all those 3D prints are actually based off of our motion-based work. We'll see why in just a little bit more. So behind the scenes of the Eclipse piece, here we can see what it finally looks like on the right, but on the left-hand side, kind of behind the scenes of, actually, kind of making an eclipse and blocking out the light from one sphere to another, along with all the rays that are exposed.
I was going to add, before we get too technical into each of these pieces, all the video projections are a mix of our two respective skill sets. So me being a videographer, Topher being a 3D illustrator, 3D modeler, working in Blender and virtual reality. So all the works we created are a mix of those elements. So there's both real life content and things created on the computer, creates imagery created in virtual reality of us like dancing together. So there's a whole lot of different stuff going on. This first one that we're looking at for the eclipse was done entirely in Blender.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And again, everything on one side of the gallery, those are our solo respective pieces, and everything on the other side are all collaborative. So that's what we're focusing on now.
Yeah, so these are two different pieces, Purple Passage and Tenta. And for these, took a lot of Topher's pre-existing 3D modeled shapes he had created. And we were like, ooh, it'd be a really fun way to collaborate is to take your shapes and my video content and just kind of like use them as a mask for them to live in within this canvas. So I have a lot of imagery personally of nature related things. So the bottom one, Tenta, is like underwater footage of jellyfish. There's one in octopus, and the top one is birds flying. These like purple martins that
Purple martins that migrate through central Texas every year. These were actually up in Round Rock just a few weeks ago.
So yeah, finding imagery that looks similar to what the content is and having them marry into this format.
So we have this piece called Wilting Light, and visually it looks like a glowing lotus that's emanating glowing orbs. And this piece was based off of a vision that Jasna had. And over on the left-hand side, you can see us working in virtual reality simultaneously. We're actually both in the same design space, working on this piece at the same time. And there's a sketch of that very lotus that we are referencing. And then we start adding all of these lines in 3D space and start filling in the petals and so on. And we continue this and refine it. And eventually we animate it on the desktop in Blender, which is what you're seeing behind the scenes over on the right. And also all these lines right here are a whole lot of camera movements that were quite the challenge to stitch together.
I also want to mention for this one specifically, this is both of our favorite piece in the show. It is extremely an emotional piece for me personally, but just like was really beautiful for us to create this together. And one of the beauties of having someone to collaborate with is like, I have a lot of visions of things that I'm like, ooh, this would look so good. I have no idea how to make it happen. So I really wanted this piece to not be a two-dimensional piece because I wanted it to have like light emanating from this lotus. And I'm like, how do I do that? I guess I could paint it. It just wouldn't really have the full effect. So being able to collaborate with someone who has a very different skill set and is able to help bring visions to life is like a really beautiful thing that we share, to be able to put our powers combined into creating work that's just, beyond our wildest dreams. And this piece for me specifically is about grieving people who are still around, which is like a very convoluted topic, but so I get really emotional with this one.
So I mentioned how there are 3D prints here that are based off our motion works, and this piece, holotropic, is the piece that's featuring the mushrooms on the far left over here.
The breathing mushrooms.
The breathing mushrooms, that's right. For those who aren't aware, holotropic is referring to a specific type of breath work, and these mushrooms are sort of breathing in synchronization. So while watching this piece, try breathing with the mushrooms and see how that experience guides you. We ended up taking one of those mushroom caps, this one right here and using it as the basis for a 3D printed work in the show. So you can see we're slicing it up here, 3D printing it, and then it's here on the walls in the gallery. And we also made some miniature versions. I'm wearing one of them right now. It's actually a pendant. It's a miniature version of that same mushroom cap. And we do have more of those available to collect. This is another piece that in the center, this work is rhythm repair, and its corresponding 3D printed version on the right-hand side is kintsugi pulse. That's based off of the Japanese art form of golden repair. Kintsugi is the term. And over on the left-hand side, we're seeing kind of behind the scenes of what the animation looks like. All of those rings are actually rings of light that are helping to illuminate the glass-like form of the animation in the center. Anything you want to add on this?
I feel like everything I want to talk about is like what each piece is about, but we would go way over time if we got into that. But it's been really meaningful for us to create all the video pieces in this show because they all represent a mix of beauty and sadness mixed together. So like this piece, for example, is about heartbreak, but still trying to like work it through when you like, it's a beating heart that's broken. So there's just a lot of layers to each of these pieces that, yeah, if you're curious, maybe afterwards come see us. But I just love how they're all beauty and sadness intertwined. So it just feels like really resonant and meaningful work. So.
Yeah, this show is very meaningful to us. So we showed Melting Mirrors from the Creek Show in 2023 earlier. And on the far left, that's actually one of the 9 videos that we used for that installation. We took a still frame from that work and then mirrored it, and everything and the reflections that is bright white is basically really tall and extruded, and everything that is dark is a valley, and everything that's in between is what's in between. So actually this 3D printed form over here on the right is an extruded version from one of those frames of our Creek Show video installation. And this is just showing a bit of the behind the scenes of it. We used a very similar process for this work. This is based off one of Jasna's previous series. She mentioned talking about the belly dancers.
Yeah, and ironically, Topher and I met when I was exhibiting this series back in Dallas. That's the first time Topher and I met. He came to see the show, and so even though it's not a collaborative work, it is very much part of our personal story. So we thought it'd be cool to include it as well.
Definitely. And then this is our first collaborative 3D print. And we had so much fun making this one because we're actually both in virtual reality. No, we're not wearing a headset. The headset is actually off to the side, but each of us is using a motion sense controller. We're dancing with each other, and we're drawing with these ribbons of light between our hands. And then, so we had this session listening to music, and we chose some of our favorite forms from that session, like this one. And then we ended up making several 3D prints of them. And two of our favorite forms from that session are in this show. And this piece is called Interreflection. And what's next for Metacaustics? So here at the Dougherty Arts Center, Austin Museum Day is on September 21st from noon to 4, and we will be having a special pop-up installation in one of the side rooms over in here where we're going to be blacking out the windows, and we're going to be doing a special projection installation for that day only in that space. So
come
don't
check
miss
it
it.
out.
We're also honored to be a part of the second annual Waterwork, which is showcasing 15 local artists who are projection mapping onto the facade of the Sea Home intake building over the edge of Lady Bird Lake, just down the street from here. You can watch from Auditorium Shores, you can watch it from a VIP boat, you can watch it from a paddleboard or a kayak. That's what we did last year. It was amazing to have front row seats on the water and be so immersed in that work. So each of us has our own separate pieces in that, and there will be music as well.
Yeah, we were very inspired by the lineup from last year, so we are very pleased to be part of this year.
Yeah, shout out to Jamal, who is a Waterwork alumni tonight in attendance. Yes, Thera?
As somebody who went last year and is very sad that I can't go this year, I highly recommend going. It was like incredible, and just having both of y'all's work there, I'm very sad I can't go, but yeah, I recommend it. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always a bit of a toss-up whenever we're applying to things, because we're like, do we apply as Metacoustics? Do we apply as our own individual artist? And decided for this one to apply individually, and we both got in, so that was exciting. But.
Yep. So again, we are Metacoustics. I'm Topher.
And I'm Jasna.
And if you would like to, follow up with us and learn more about us, there's our information. And also that QR code will take you to more information about this Somnium show at the Dougherty Arts Center. It also takes you to
all of our contact, like Instagram accounts, etc.
There's
So
also
it's like a one-stop shop for all the things.
Mhm. And an online store for you folks who are visiting from a distance online. You can actually purchase these works remotely as well, and you can do so through there. So I guess we'll take a few more questions before we switch over to Beverly. I know we gotta, leave plenty of space. So thanks for being here tonight. Yes, sir.
So on some of those 3Ds that you did, the printing, have y'all done projections on those, or thought about doing some projections, colors, or sort of integrating some of that with those sculptures?
Not yet, but that's to be continued. That's definitely something that's in the works.
Yeah, we've talked about it. We're like, do we do it for this show? Not enough time, too much ambition, but that's definitely things we're thinking about going forward as well, is incorporating even more of the works we've done and how to mix them.
Have you done a performance piece, like the two of you dancing with each other, and like, or have you considered doing something like that while you're like drawing?
I think we've also talked about that. If you can't tell from my stage performance, I'm very shy about doing any kind of performative work. So we'll see. It might be more like recorded, edited, and then put on the internet, but we'll see. I might have the courage to do that someday.
Yeah, stay tuned. Yes, Beverly.
I have a question about the one we were talking about dancing. Were you looking at what was being drawn as it was happening, or did you look at it afterwards and see how it came out?
We, in the process of making it, I was definitely like, what are we doing the whole time? And since we were like recording ourselves, I'm like, that's breaking character. That doesn't look right. So then after that, we had to just let go of that and just trust the process. And the ones we made at the end that we ended up printing were just pure, just whatever comes out. So
For most of the part, we were not looking at what we
Looking.
were doing. We were just enjoying the moment.
Can you talk about the name Metacoustics? What it means to you, or how you found it?
yeah, thanks for asking. So the first time Topher and I hung out properly, had this whole conversation about how we are very similar artists. We're like, go figure, we're both projection artists. We like the same kind of themes that we explore in our work. Light is a big one for both of us. I even say light is a love language for me sometimes. And I guess we both say that, never mind. But Topher introduced me to the word caustics. I'd never heard of that word before, and he was like, "How do you not know this word?" But it's like refracted light. Can you explain caustics?
Certainly. I wish I had an example with me to show you. But if you were to take a glass, like a drinking water glass, and then shine a flashlight through it onto the wall, there's all these patterns that will emerge. And that's basically light bouncing through and refracting through some sort of translucent surface. Water does this all the time as well. That's one of our favorite sources of caustics, especially moving water and how it interacts with sunlight.
Yeah, so we knew we liked the word caustics, and I think when we started working on the piece for Creek Show and knew that we wanted to do some kind of like staggered screen like layout or display. Before we knew that the imagery would be water specifically, he was playing with caustics as the imagery. And so it was cool to just see like the caustics upon the caustics upon the caustics creating even more effect. And I was like, whoa, that's so meta. And
So
then it just
meta
became meta caustics. So
Yeah, we both got very excited. So it's
it just felt right. So.
Isn't there some sort of art form with wax that's something with caustic?
With wax?
Encaustic.
Yeah.
Oh, encaustic. That is a very different term.
Okay.
You're right though. It's
Yeah,
It
encaustic.
sort of sounds familiar, and then I just remember seeing that art form a few years ago.
Gotcha.
I have a quick question on the topic of meta. You spoke about the beauty and sadness and kind of the paradox that exists in work. Could you speak more about some of the colors you used and how those reflect storytelling? It's a more emotional landscape of the work.
Absolutely. For just all the works in general, or?
Whichever you like to speak on.
Yeah, I don't know if for my series per se, I had like too much intention with the colors as much as just like limiting the colors. Like I started making a few with pink or brown. And I was like, no, all these colors don't work. I just knew I wanted to work with, I think there were 6 colors in total for the entire series. I think that was more just to give myself a creative limitation. But I know as far as the work we create together, light being the main common component. So anything we do is a color you would see light, like shyness, or maybe bring up some examples would be helpful. Yeah, like the lotus one, for example, thinking about the wilting lotus. I know it doesn't look too wilted, but like life leaving it with the orb, so the light being yellow and full of life, leaving this decaying remnant of a lotus, which then we were like, oh, blue lotus, it's really on point. So we do try to find things that are symbolic, like the purple passage one with the birds, we made it have a bit of a purple tone. So I guess we do think about color, but it's definitely not like front of our process. It's more of a aesthetic choice than.
It's also sometimes an intuitive choice too. Yep. Any more questions?
Anything else?
Working with media, how much of your process is using the media in more novel and different ways, as opposed to identifying and choosing media that will help realize your vision? You kind of talk about in certain pieces, using the virtual to be able to bring that lotus to life. You wouldn't necessarily come to that on your own, but is it a balance of the two? Do you feel like you lean more one way or the other?
I definitely think, having this collaborative nature helps with figuring out which direction we go in. For example, Topher having worked in virtual reality for a number of years before I showed up, and then I was like, what would it look like to both create at the same time? Like you have one controller and I have one controller, so I can like bring in fresh ideas with a material he's very comfortable and familiar with and think of it in new ways. And I think he's helped me in that way as well. Like with my video work, instead of it just being a rectangular format, why can't it just like live as these interesting shapes? So I think we just like help each other think outside the box of like the medium we're used to working with.
relatedly, when we're doing the animations, especially the direction of where the camera is looking and how it's moving, since Jasna has a lot more experience with videography and camera work, she's actually directing way more of that than I am in those situations. And so it's been interesting to sort of match like our strengths, even in mediums that we're less familiar with, but we're able to use the conceptual strengths that we have.
All right, thanks so much, everyone.
Please stick around because Beverly will be presenting next.
Can I take a photo of everyone here? Consents, yeah. Awesome, thank you.